What is going on, Diesel Nation? We're excited to have you guys with us today on the #1 truck podcast on iTunes. We want to thank you guys for making that happen with all the downloads of our episodes, the reviews that you give us. And we want to encourage you guys to follow us on social media. Just go to the Diesel Podcast on Facebook or Instagram, and there you're going to find previews of the episodes. And also, we're going to ask you guys for questions. So we're going to say, hey, we've got this topic on, or this company, we're going to be talking about this. What questions should we ask? And we love being able to incorporate your questions into the episode. So make sure you guys follow us on social media. Now, on today's episode, we're going to be talking about rat rods. And the gentleman that's going to be on today, he built his own. And he's going to give some tips and tricks of things you guys can do if you've always wanted to build one, how you can do it, where you can find information or help along the way. And he's going to tell us about why he chose a 12-valve Cummins. He went with a BD towing compound turbo setup, some fueling upgrades, different things, and how the thing drives on the street. So we know you guys are going to love this episode. Before we get to it, we want to thank two of our sponsors who help make these episodes possible. And the first is Alligator Performance. If you guys are looking for anything to do with your diesel truck, whether it's wheels and tires, suspension, transmissions, intercoolers, air intakes, fueling upgrades, go to alligatorperformance.com. They've got a ton of deals that they're running right now. But when you call them, or if you message in, mention the Diesel Podcast. And they've put together some special packages and discounts and things like that for Diesel Podcast listeners. So all you got to do is just mention the Diesel Podcast. They'll hook you guys up. And also PPEI. If you go to PPEI.com, you're going to find custom tuning for your Cummins Duramax Powerstroke, your 3-liter F-150 Powerstroke, or the 5-liter Cummins that's in the Titan. And these guys are, what they're doing with tuning is really pushing it to the next level, and options that they have for emissions on tuning, getting really good power out of these trucks and being able to do it safely. So I want to encourage you guys to go check them out, ppei.com. Any diesel truck that you have that you're looking for custom tuning on, those guys can hook you up. All right, let's get to the podcast talking about rat rods.
This is Corey Willis with PPEI, and you're listening to the Diesel Podcast.
I'm Adam Blattenberg from Diesel World.
This is Dan, owner of Dan's Diesel Performance.
I'm Kaz from Diesel Doctor of Tennessee, and you're listening to the Diesel Podcast.
Tyler, welcome to the Diesel Podcast. I'm excited to chat with you about this rat rod and your background in diesel and how the build went. I know our listeners are going to love hearing about this, so we appreciate your time today.
I appreciate you having me.
Now, the listeners out there, they're going to see the picture of the build, and we want to get to it in a second, but I wanted to ask you about your background with diesels, if you've owned diesel trucks, or just what happened before the build that kind of, fed into saying, hey, I'm going to stuff a Cummins in a rat rod.
Well, being a dairy farmer, you grow up around all types of diesel engines, and you have a fair share of repairs that has to be done. So growing up as a kid, we tinkered on, case tractors and John Deeres, and I don't know, just seeing that black smoke roll, man, just it got my heart pumping. I guess my first vehicle was a 1997 Cummins. It was my grandpa's. He passed away, and I bought that truck when I was 16 years old. It was his last truck he owned before he passed. It had 27,000 original miles. It was a non-molested 12-valve, it had the old Dodge automatic transmission that was, prone to breaking. So I just started tinkering, messed with the fuel pump, got the P-pump turned up a little bit, burnt 2 or 3 transmissions. And I don't know, it's always been in my blood, man. It's just something that I enjoy. I enjoy seeing the power that some of these vehicles can make, just the endurance of the engines. I've had a 12-valve, a 24-valve, a common rail, and my current truck is a 2011 6.7 Cummins. It's got the EFI Live with ARP head studs, with the air dock fuel system, just your real small, common, mods done to a everyday roving truck,
So you're a Cummins guy.
Yes, I'm a Cummins guy at heart. Don't get me wrong, Duramax and Ford, they're good trucks and stuff, but like I said, going back to the dairy and the farming background, most of these tractors run a Cummins engine. And it's just something that I've been familiar with, and I can see the strain they can take, and, I don't know, man, just something about a Cummins engine, it's in my blood.
What's so cool about them is like you said, the how many of them are out there, say like in pickup trucks, and a lot of the parts are interchangeable, or you can, not a lot's changed besides fuel systems and technology and stuff, but the hard parts and the familiarity with it. And I think especially with the aftermarket is there's tons that people can do, like the second gen swaps, putting those on a 6.7 Cummins, or just tons of different things. It's really cool about that platform.
Exactly. And it 90% of it somewhat cost efficient, for a normal person to go out there and tinker with their truck and be able to do it themselves, which means a lot to some people.
Oh yeah. There's definitely some money to be saved, doing it yourself. Like on one truck I had, it was a 6.7. I'm like, I'm going to throw this Fleece S464 kit on it, and some, PPEI EFI Live, and, a lift pump system and things. And I could do it at home or, with some friends or something. And it's pretty straightforward.
Exactly. That's kind of why I lean more towards a Cummins engine. Dodge, they may not make the best body parts or the drivetrain, but as far as the engine, I think it speaks enough for itself.
Well, you're the first guest that we've had on the Diesel podcast that's built a rat rod. And we did a primer not long ago where we posted a picture or two of it on social media, and people really loved it. So I wanted you to walk us through that build from the point you had the idea of, hey, I think I want to build this, all the way through it to where it sits today.
Well, it all started, I ended up trading a side-by-side for this 1931 Ford Model A sedan. It had your common, 350 gasser in it. It was a rat rod style, kind of rough shape. It come out of Virginia. I brought it home. I drove it a while, enjoyed just, people love rat rods, just something about it that catches people's eyes. I drove it a while, and I was like, man, this is fun. And, well, then I got the idea, hey, I want to sell this or trade it. I'm always in the trading game.
Mm-hmm.
My brother come up to me, and he's like, man, you know what we need to do? He said, we need to drop a Cummins in that thing. He's like, no one around here's done it. He's like, I just think it'll look awesome. So we started, getting together, talking, and it just started falling into place. We ended up stripping the car down to just keeping the cab, the front and rear axle, and we sold everything else. And from there, obviously we come up with a frame design. You got to have something to bolt the body down on. So we ended up doing a Z frame. It's a common hot rod frame. We used 2x4 channel with some gussets in between it to make sure, it was going to withstand the torque of that big diesel engine. From there, we airbagged the rear suspension. The front, we kept it more modern. We kept the monoleaf up front, which gives it that old school look. And we went with a set of Speedway full rotors, front and rear. We definitely wanted to be able to stop with that much weight up front, that much power. If you ain't got good brakes, you ain't really going to want to drive it down the road.
No.
It's not as much as stopping it as going with something that big and torquey. From there, the design changed probably 100 times, to tell you the truth. I mean, we settled on a flat black body, and we didn't really feel like that would really show the character of the car. So to tell you the truth, we put the body on about 5 or 6 5-gallon buckets in our shop, and we just all grabbed a sander, and we just all started going to town sanding it. Trying to get that patina look, but not actually letting it set outside and let the Mother Nature take its course on it. From there, we done a little bit of the green and the copper just to give it that mean look. It kind of just pops out at you like it's going to get you or something. But from there, it unfolded to what you see today. Just a big bad 1931 Ford with a Cummins stuck down in it.
What kind of Cummins engine did you put in there?
It's out of a 1997 Cummins. It's a 12-hour with the 215 P pump.
How did you get it to fit?
Obviously we cut the firewall out, and it's a tight fit. Let me tell you, when you sit down in that car, you got minimum leg room. You know, we done away with a lot of the, I guess, the comfort and, you know, the movement in the car when you place, you know, a big old transmission inside a little body like that. It wasn't so bad getting the motor to fit as it was getting the transmission to fit, you know, because the motor being mounted outside the car, you know, the sky's the limit. So when you start, you know, stuffing a Dodge automatic transmission into a, you know, 4-foot wide body car, you start losing a lot of your movement inside around your pedals and stuff.
Yeah, I can see that.
That was probably the most hardest thing to figure out, was how to make all that work, because we originally wanted to stick with an MV 4500, but there was no possible way a man could fit 3 pedals in that car. So we ended up, you know, we originally started with a 47 RH transmission, and we ended up, you know, eventually burning the transmission out of it. You know, them transmissions, they just can withstand a little bit of work. Even a car as light as that car is, it still ended up getting overdrive and stuff in that car.
I was going to ask you about the performance upgrades to it. As far as the engine, did you do kind of the same set of upgrades as you did on the 97 truck with modifying the pump a little bit, you know, those sorts of things? Did you get, you know, go all out with turbos, fueling, the whole 9 yards?
We started out with a set of diesel auto power 7x12 injectors. We done a set of full cut delivery valves. We timed the pump to 23 degrees, and we put a set of 4,000 governor springs. We modded the fuel plate a little bit, and we installed a set of ARP 425 head studs. As far as the fuel system, you know, to supply that, we're running an AirDog 2 165 with a 15-gallon fuel cell. And as far as turbos, we're running it's a smaller setup, but it's getting the job done right now. It's a BD towing compound. It's a 58 over 66, which spools really nice. We may eventually change that to 2 larger turbos, you know, but right now it's doing fairly good. You know, it's pushing around 60 to 70 pounds of boost as far as we can tell with the gauge. So it's doing plenty enough for us.
Yeah, I was gonna just singing about kind of the setup and the fueling and everything, and I bet it does spool quick, so you can, you know, kind of get up and go. You don't got to wait too long to bring the, you know, the airflow and the power on.
Yeah, that's kind of, I was running a single S363, and it was just a little laggy on takeoff. You know, you would have to get going, then it would just kick in and go. And it was awesome. Of course, people love the black smoke and stuff, but I wanted more quicker throttle response. So by going to them compounds, it definitely helped light it a whole lot faster. So we're pleased with that setup right now.
I think that's one of the most common questions we get with builds or different things. And we've had BD on a few times and talked to him about like single versus compounds. And it's really what you just described with the usable power range that you have from low, mid, and high RPM range, where you're not really sacrificing anything really. You know, it's just, you got 2 turbos, but you know, it gives you the ability to use the whole RPM range.
Exactly. And that, you know, on a car like what we have, you know, it definitely ain't going to be hooked to no sled or hooked to no trailer towing anything by any means. But it's still nice to be able to have that low RPM spool to get the job done. You know, we have done a little drag racing with it, not a whole lot, but we have tinkered a little bit at the local drag strip with it. Our biggest problem is trying to get it to spool. We do have to spool it somewhat, you know, when you're trying to race it, and we're having problems with it. It's trying to push the front wheels because we're running some real narrow poker front tires, and they're just wanting to really slide. So we can't really do a lot of drag racing with it, but it's definitely fun for just your everyday driving and going to town and hitting up some diesel events and stuff like that.
When I saw the pictures that you sent me of the build, like, I'm one of those guys that if I put together furniture, I've got leftover parts. So when I was looking at all the work you did, it's almost intimidating. And I think a lot of the listeners out there, or maybe not a lot, but some of them are like, I really want to build one of those, but I'm intimidated by all that goes into it. How would you describe that part of the build where there may not be, there's not an instruction manual with it. It's just, you have a vision and you have parts and an engine and you're trying to make it all work. What helped you bring this whole build together?
Well, it's definitely having good confidence in yourself. I can tell you many times that I've walked over and looked in that shop and seen that car sitting in the corner in a million pieces. And you think to yourself, this is a money pit. It's never going to be finished. What have I got myself into? But when you go back and just like envision what you're thinking you're going to build and just telling yourself, hey, when this is done, it's going to be worth it. I mean, yeah, there's money to be involved. Nothing's free by no means, but it's well worth the time. If you have a welder, a chop saw, any type of fabrication skills, you could build a car easy, a truck easy, anything you put your mind to. It's just one of them things where the closer it got to being finished, the more you just felt like, hey, I've accomplished something that I've envisioned, and it's come to life. It ain't nothing you can go out there and say, hey, I'm going to do this and have it done next week. I don't see that happening, but it can be done by anyone. This is our first car we ever built. Me and my brother done 90% of the work on this car other than a few hands from our friends coming over and turning some wrenches with us. So, we're just your average, diesel junkies really, and, anything's possible.
How long did it take you guys to do the build?
It took us right at a year and a half. 90% of that, honestly, got finished towards the last 4 months of that year because I don't know if you're familiar with Beans Diesel in Woodbury, Tennessee, but they have a really, really good diesel event, and it's Blackout the Country. And I've attended that diesel event many years before this car was ever thought about. And when that diesel event started coming up, I told myself, I said, I want this car done. I want to take this car and show it off at this diesel event. And that's what I done. We worked and worked and worked, and we got this car running 2 weeks before Beans Diesel's event went on. And I hauled it down there in an enclosed trailer so no one could see it. And, boy, when that thing fired up, you should have seen the crowd of people come running wanting to know what the heck's in that trailer. And it was just the look on people's faces, man. It's just, it makes you feel good when you think back and all them long hours in the shop and, maybe them cuts on your hands and frustrated nights of things not going right. And you think, man, it really paid off just to see the look on people's face and the excitement that brings to people, especially the smaller kids. They really enjoy that car, and things like that.
What's so cool about your build is it combines diesel performance and diesel engines, which we're all enthusiasts of, but then you have this classic body but with kind of a twist on it where you can make it look how you want and kind of give it that edgy look to it. And it's just combining all these really cool things into a vehicle where I think we're just drawn to it. We want to see it. We want to know more about it. We're just excited. It's different.
And that's exactly right. I mean, that's when I started turning, honestly, Patrick, I turned away from spending so much money on my new Dodge and put more focus on my car because I could park them two side by side and no one cares a thing about that new truck. They're all drawn to that car.
Yeah.
So I told myself, let's put all the attention towards that car and just bring all the details out. Like if you walk around my car, we used a lot of old Model A, like wrenches and stuff they used on the old-timey tractors. Like my brake and gas pedal, we used old wrenches and the headlight brackets are old wrenches. We just brought, like you said when you was talking about, the sky's endless for what you want to do to something like that. You could mount whatever you want on it. You could paint it whatever you want. That's what's kind of neat about building a car or truck like what we have done, because you kind of make it your own. You add whatever you want. If you want to, do stacks with barbed wire wrapped around them or whatever, it's just it's the details that I think kind of makes more people interested about the build.
For sure. Oh yeah, it's like you go to a truck show or just anywhere driving around a town or any place, you're going to see newer trucks, and they're going to be lifted and have nice wheels and tires, and you're probably going to see, a few of the same color and everything. But when you get into a rat rod build, everything could be custom. Everything has a story. The paint, the pedals, the engine, the way the turbos sit, the tires, the wheels, and it's that story that we're drawn to. And I think whenever I've seen them, I've been like, I need to know more. Like, tell me about the build. How'd you do this? How'd you do that? And that's what's so cool. And we're really excited to have you on today to tell us about it. And hopefully someone out there listening is inspired. They might have, an older vehicle sitting there. They've got an engine on a stand. They don't know what to do with it, and they've thought about it. And so it's cool to pick your brain, so to speak, about the whole process. And one of the things that I did want to ask you is, you had mentioned your brother and some friends had helped, but what companies helped you, or what people could you turn to and say, hey, I don't know what to do with this. Have you ever come across this? What can I do to make this work?
I mean, I've turned to a few companies, but as far as, there's not many companies I turn to as far as the build, but as far as like engine and performance wise, there's several. I mean, I talked to, as I was building the car, there was a few diesel events I attended, and I talked to a few vendors and some guys, about, hey, what do you recommend running as the fuel system, or the injectors, or, the transcoiler and stuff like that. But as far as, they ain't really no companies to turn to when you start building something like this, other than if you was looking for performance help, is really the only answer I have on that.
Yeah, I imagine it could be pretty tough outside of, hey, what fuel and air should I run, because it's custom, and there's going to be so many things that you're going to run into that there's no kit, there's no part number to order to get this stuff.
Like when we went to, when we burnt the transmission up, we ended up turning to a 47 RE transmission with a full manual valve body. And, when we done that, we was able to turn to some help, on what to do. Like we installed a billet flex plate, a billet triple disc, CVC converter, Red Eagle clutches. It's got a few billet actuator pistons, billet servo, band lever, stuff like that. It's got a full manual valve body with the pressure bumped up. Things like that, there's all kinds of help to turn to. But when you go call up someone and say, hey, I'm trying to stick a Cummins into a 1931 Ford Model A, can you help me with, say, the brakes is, they don't really know what to tell you, especially when you put in a big diesel engine. Diesels and rat rods are something that they're growing, which a lot of people like it, a lot of people hate it. It's a love-hate relationship. I love it because I'm a diesel guy. It's just the diesel rat rod industry is growing. There's a ton of them out there. I know you've probably seen them on YouTube and on Facebook and stuff. So it is a growing breed, which that's kind of what inspired us when we built this car. Is while we was building this car, we kind of run into other people that had built similar builds, and that's kind of, I guess, where you could get your help from if you was looking to build one. If you needed help on the frame, the suspension, stuff like that, I guess that's where I should have said I got some of my help from. I did contact a few guys I met on social media, and they was able to, most of them guys, they'll lend a hand. They ain't going to be, stuck up and say, well, I'm not going to tell you how to do this and that. Most of them guys, they was really helpful. So I guess that's where a person could turn to if they was needing some help on the suspension and frame of building a rat rod.
And do you think you'd build another one?
Crazy enough, we're in the process of building one right now. Yeah, we started out, this is one of them things where building a rat rod, it changes several times. We started out building a 1951 GMC. We was going to put it on a 1998 Dodge Ram 2500 chassis with full air ride from Air Slam it, with a set of 24.5 semi wheels milled down. But that truck there, to fit them big semi wheels, we're going to have to do a lot of cutting on the front clip. And I think we've turned our attention now towards a 1971 International with the butterfly hood that I picked up from a guy a town or two away from us. I think that's what we're focusing on now, is slapping that International body down on that Dodge chassis. And it's also going to run the 12 valve with a MV 4500 transmission. And what we're looking at to do with that truck is more or less be like our tow rig. We could haul our car on it to shows, because that's even cooler if you pull up, haul an old car with an old truck.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of where we're at on that. This truck has took a little longer than I expected, but, it's one of them things that you don't, you don't build it. You don't have a deadline or a certain day. It's one of them things that could take a year. It could take 3 years. But when it's done, I promise you, I can tell every listener out there, when it's done, it is well worth the sacrifice you put into it. I promise you.
We're going to have you back on to talk about the truck.
I would definitely let you know when it is finished, because I'm eager to get it done. It's something I picture it in my head almost every day. I walk in that shop and see that frame setting over there. I can just picture myself, me and my brother or my wife or whoever, rolling down the interstate, pulling that car, and just the look on people's faces. I already get it when we drive the car down the road. So just imagine what it's going to be like when you have two old vehicles getting towed down the road. It's going to be pretty awesome.
One of the things that, we get, pictures of trucks and things from our listeners, and you have so many good ones. I feel bad just posting one of them up on YouTube and social media. Do you have a page on Instagram or Facebook where our listeners can go and check out all the cool pictures you have of this rat rod?
Yes, I do. I'm on Facebook. It's Tyler Sparkman. And on Instagram, it is Sparkman_03. And you can message, if you're building a car and, you're one of the listeners and you have a problem, message me. I'll be more than glad to help you. If I don't have the answer, I will either find it for you or I will put you in the direction with one of the guys that helped me build my car. Because there's people out there, I didn't think there was until I got started. I posted a few pictures on Instagram. A few buddies tagged some buddies. They messaged me. They helped us out, So, yeah, I don't want no one to sit out there being discouraged about a project they got, a lot of money sunk into and it's not moving forward with, because there is, there's help out there to help get that dream finished.
It's really cool. I'll make sure that we tag you when we post up as well, so any listeners can just click right over and ask you about it. There's so many engines that are sitting out there. There's transmissions, there's parts, there's things that are just on stands that could build something really cool, really exciting. And I'm sure, when you go to shows and events, and there might be somebody who's not really familiar with diesel, they're just going, they got dragged there, they're going with their buddies or something, and they see it. You can inspire someone to do that, or to buy a diesel truck, or to just become an enthusiast of diesel. And I think that's the power of it. And especially with social media, and the pictures you have are great, is you see it and you're like, wow, I need to learn more about that. And it can start a lifelong passion for this type of engine. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it is. And another thing that really makes it pay off is, meeting, I met Chris, when I took that car to Beans Diesel for the first time, it pulled off the trailer. not long after that car got pulled off the trailer, Chris from Diesel World Magazine come up to me, and he's like, man, I want to shoot an article on this car. And for someone to walk up and ask you to do something like that, it really means a lot. And about a year from that conversation we had, I met with Chris, and we done some photos and stuff, and my car actually made the front cover of the Diesel Builder Guide. And man, just that accomplishment, for something that me and my brother had worked so hard for, and for it to be able to be shown. And like you said, kind of like the podcast here, that article when he wrote about the car is just to inspire younger people or older people that, hey, if you want to do this, it can be done. It just takes a little time and dedication, and it can happen.
I think it's so cool as well, like with this podcast is, we did an episode about restoring a first-gen Cummins, and then it's like, hey, I got this buddy who did a rat rod. Do you want to talk to him? Like, yeah, I want to talk to him. And then somebody will contact us or tag us with something and be like, hey, I'm building this. I restored this. And there's so many stories out there that can get missed, or it's hard to get the attention, or I don't want to say attention, but just like people see it. And it's like, that's what I love. That's what keeps me going every day, every week, is not necessarily focusing on like the trucks that everybody sees or the builds that everybody sees, but there's so many other unique ones out there that's why this episode, when we had chatted before, I'm like, I can't wait to do this one because it's unique. It's cool. We do hear about listeners out there that are like, I kind of want to do this, but I'm intimidated by it. I don't know where to start. And that's what we love. That's what we love to talk about. So it's really cool. And anyone who's listening, it's like, hey, I built this, I built that. Tag us on Instagram or send us a message or something on that, or Facebook. And we do love to talk about these kind of builds that they're not typical. They're not just wheels and tires or something. A lot went into them, and a lot of passion and time.
Exactly. That's kind of what I'm hoping this podcast will do. It will actually maybe have, like you said, people reach out to you that may have thought, hey, they don't want to talk about this stuff. They're more into newer modern vehicles than your classic older, not so old vehicles. This right here may open some doors up for some other people to be able to get recognized for some of their hard work that they have accomplished on their vehicle. Definitely.
Well, I appreciate your time today and giving us an insight into what it's like to build something like this and the process for it. And I'm going to encourage all the listeners as well, is when you hear this, go on Instagram, Facebook, check out the pictures of this rat rod, because it is cool. I was looking through the ones you sent me, and I'm like finding new things in each picture. I'm like, how do you do that? Oh wait, look at that. And it was like an hour and a half later, I'm like, maybe one day I need to try to build something like this.
Well, if you want to build one, you let me know, and I'll be glad to help you. But yeah, I did have some help. I do have a few sponsors I would like to thank that helped me on a few parts. Getting sponsors, it's hard. You got to be able to hit up shows and do things for them sponsors to want to, invest time in you. And being a dairy farmer, I don't have a lot of time to hit a lot of shows up, but I do have a few sponsors that was willing enough to help me, and I would like to thank. I would like to thank AirDog. They supplied me with a really good fuel system. So if you are in the market for a fuel system, look up AirDog. Diesel Auto Power, they hooked me up on the injectors. I got a local shop here, K&D Upholster. They done the seats in the car and the vinyl top to keep me from getting wet. And American Outlaw Welding, he made me a custom octagon tilt that's been patinaed. I don't think it was in the photos I sent you, but I do have some photos of it on the car now. That's a few of the sponsors I have that that has helped me out, and they are helping me on this future build that we are working on.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, let me know when you get the next one done, and we'll talk about maybe some of the different challenges and things that you faced on the truck versus the car, and just the process for that one. I think that's going to be a really interesting build as well.
It'd be awesome to talk to you about it, and I definitely will. As soon as that truck hits the street, you'll be one of the first people to get notified.
Don't forget, diesel fans, make sure and head on over to alligatorperformance.com. When you call them or message in, mention the Diesel Podcast. They've got some special discounts and some special hookups that they're going to give you for being a Diesel Podcast listener. And also go to PPEI.com. They've got a completely revamped site. You can search for tuning for your Cummins Duramax Powerstroke, 3-liter Powerstroke, 5-liter V8 Cummins that's in the Titans. Anything you're looking for with tuning, those guys have seen it, know how to make the truck run better, and can get you the most power possible out of your setup. Till next time, keep the shiny side up.